Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Beards. Apologies for the late start. Had some technical difficulties, required a hard reset on the computer. Everything froze up, the gears seized, and they were just not going forward. Not having it tonight, but the people power is here. I'm your host, Rob Schuh. That's my co-host, Randon McMahon, who is T-minus 3 hours and 53 minutes in Texas time from turning 1 year older. Tomorrow is Randon's birthday. Happy early birthday, my friend. How you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I feel a year sexier, a year more decrepit when it comes to doing physical activities. The hangovers last exponentially longer as you get through old age. But good, man. I'm 1 year closer to get to the Clooney stage where I get a little bit more salt in this beard here. But it feels good, man. It feels good.
Adding a little salt to the pepper, huh? That's what it's all about. It's all about that mix, and it is fortunate to be a man as you age, because people tend to see us as getting more sophisticated, a little more handsome. It's usually a positive trait. I will say, Randon, you're headed in the right direction. I'm sure you got another 10, 20 years of killing it out there, my friend.
The marketing is great for being a guy. It really is. You got the, hey, you don't got a six-pack? You're the dad bod guy. Hey, everybody likes a good dad bod. Oh, you're going bald. Hey, shave it off. You're the Bruce Willis. You got the great Bruce Willis going on.
Yes,
Mr. Die Hard himself. Salt and pepper, right? You're talking about George Clooney. Like made it popular for everybody. Like there's not a bad age to be a man. It really is not.
World's sexiest man is always someone in their 40s or 50s. World's sexiest woman is typically someone in their 20s or early 30s. It's not fair. But that's kind of the way in which things have gone for the foreseeable past.
I think people just want to drink copious amounts of scotch and drink cigars on a yacht. And that screams 55. That's what it screams. Screams 55 right there. So
all about that age. All right. Well, we are all wishing you a happy birthday. I pulled it up there from the comments. Alan Elizer, Sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in to say happy early birthday, Randon. I appreciate everybody that's here in the chat. The Stivers Niners 209 show is changing up the name of his show. He's announced that, but he says, Rob, traded Trey Lance to get Matt Jones on the Niners. This must be a wish list of what he wants to happen. So getting rid of Trey Lance, getting Matt Jones on the Niners, trading Brandon Ayuk, getting 2 first-round picks from the Eagles, and then going to Vegas for the Super Bowl. I would be thrilled if we could make some big moves happen. I'm not predicting any of those there. The Stivers Niners 209 show.
Let's go this. I saw this online today.
Say it.
Random topic that just came up off the brain when I was walking back from getting a brewski after my haircut. Patriots are reported interested in Deebo Samuel, saying, "Would you take the 14th overall pick for Deebo?"
I mean, when you talk about draft compensation, the 14th overall pick is pretty good for a guy that's earning premium money at his position already. Personally, no. I'm not taking that pick for Deebo Samuel. I think he adds more to this offense than we would be able to replace with that 14th pick. But man, 14th pick and then you get all that cap savings. No, I'm sticking with Deebo Samuel because he fits so well within this offense. Are you taking that deal?
What if that 14th overall pick was a 5-year starting right tackle?
And that's where you start getting into, hey, the puzzle pieces could align. A 5-year starting right tackle where you don't have to pay $15 million annually. That to me starts to add up. At least I still believe that what you lose in losing Deebo Samuel, it's not just the talent that you lose. To me, when you pay a guy big money and you're like, we're committing to him, and then you trade him away, it's deflating. It reminds me very much of the DeForest Buckner situation, and it just doesn't feel right to the fan base, certainly. But I think that the team felt that as well. It was as if you had stolen a piece of their heart. And Deebo feels like that kind of a guy on the offense.
I agree with you there. I think Deebo is definitely maybe like easily top 5 heart guy on the team.
Yes, I would agree.
It's definitely not 1 or 2. So like I think it would be supremely deflating to the character, the atmosphere, the gumption of the Niners if
I
they
agree.
play. But 14 is a pretty high pick. You're getting, if you can hit that pick, that's a 5-year starter for cheap money. And we always talk about value. Did Deebo really live up to the value of his contract last season? Probably not. So, like, are you really, the dead money though? I think a lot of people are saying the dead money. If you look at the contracts in the accoutrement, if you will, of the,
Yeah, right. The
but
money that's staying on our books because we already paid it to him as a bonus up front.
the dead money this year is still high, but they're saying maybe next year would be the year to try to shop Deebo ahead of time. But
Yeah, I mean, it's a
I'm still
crapshoot on some levels, right? I mean, it's a crapshoot in that if you draft Tristan Wirfs with that pick, then you're good. If you draft Javon Kinlaw with that pick, maybe it doesn't turn out as well, right? It's that same range where you might hit on a stud. You might hit on someone that is a cornerstone for whatever position you're filling right there, and you might just completely whiff.
What if you were able to? Now I know Hopkins would never be traded within the division, but what if you say, let's say Keenan Allen? Chargers are rumored to cut Keenan Allen. What if you got Keenan Allen and the first round pick or Deebo Samuel?
Ooh, the hypothetical of Keenan Allen and a first round pick. So if I first of all, I have to take out of the equation my just wanting Deebo on the 49ers. I am obsessed with Deebo Samuel and his mentality. My home screen on my phone has been Deebo Samuel forever. Deebo riding his bike.
You don't have to take that out because that's part of it, right? Like, what does he bring to the team? But you're looking at if the Chargers cut Keenan Allen,
yeah,
and then you are able to sign him for probably 15 mil, and then you get a first round pick for Deebo Samuel, and you get a right tackle or whatever. Are you in a similar space? Is what I'm saying.
Yes, two separate answers to that one. To me, number one, is the team better in that instance? Yes, I think you have a chance to make your team better. The second question is, would I do it from a talent perspective? You can make your team better from a talent perspective by replacing Deebo with Keenan Allen and then adding whomever you can take at the 14th overall pick. And I still wouldn't do it because of that heart piece. I really do believe that you create these locker rooms that have a certain vibe about them. And this team has a special one, in my humble opinion. If you trade away those fundamental pieces, I think you erode at that foundation. And I wouldn't be willing to do that with this team as it currently stands.
Very acceptable answer. Fun exercise. Let's roll.
Let us roll. I want to say what's up to those that have been here in the chat. Raphael 562 Niners coming in, always saying what's up to myself, yourself, the sneakerheads, and everybody. Quesadilla Thrilla in the house. Sneakerhead here on the channel. Nothing finer than us 209 49ers in reference to the Stivers Niners 209 show. We have got the greatest 49 Sneakerhead coming in to say what's up to the fam. Luke Walsh doesn't buy the hard reset that I said at the beginning of the show. He's like, yeah, blaming the computer. Unbelievable. Ian Sharp coming in. Endless categories. Not sure what that's in reference to. The Hispawaiian is in there asking about who is Matt Jones. We've got great one 765 draft pick 99. Kobe Turner, defensive tackle 101. Ronnie Hickman, safety. Darian Williams, linebacker, O-line and free agency. These are the picks that Great One 765 wants to make with some of those compensatory draft picks. CJ Gray coming in to say what's up, CJ. Good to see you as well. All right. We've covered the obligatory hello to everyone here. Want to say thank you to everybody that likes the video, subscribes to the channel, watches Randon and I on a regular basis. We appreciate you. If you want Randon's information, it is down below in the description of this video, so you can go give him a follow as well. Randon, I want to go through a little exercise here where we're talking about the 49ers' upcoming free agents. We've got three categories that we're going through here: exclusive rights, free agents, restricted rights, free agents, and then the unrestricted free agents. The vast majority of the time here, we are going to spend on the unrestricted free agents because for the exclusive right free agents, we only have one. It's Juwan Jennings. I think to me, a exclusive rights free agent means that they can only negotiate with us. Almost all of those players get deals done, assuming that you want that player back. So let's start there, because to me, it feels obvious that You're obviously going to want Jawan Jennings back. And if he is an exclusive rights free agent, you're going to get that deal done. To me, that feels like a lock and one that you should want as the third wide receiver on the team.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. We are through the exclusive rights free agents. All right, we'll get to
simple there. Pretty simple there, Rob. I mean, he's a wide receiver that is doing his job. You can't spend a lot of money on the third wide receiver. Case closed, man. Just
case closed. He gets, I mean, the key for me is Jawan Jennings is a dude that I absolutely want on the team. He just delivers in key moments. It's phenomenal.
Definitely a heart guy. Definitely a heart guy for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll end up on the restricted free agents because that requires a little bit of a conversation about tendering them with a first or a second round or an original round tender. Let's talk about those players that are going to hit free agency. They can negotiate with any team once free agency starts on March 15th. We'll have that legal/illegal tampering window that is just the most awkward thing for the NFL. And then March 15th will happen and all these deals will start rolling out as if they magically happened at the deadline, when in reality they were hammered out during the legal tampering period. All right, so unrestricted free agents. Let's start with a big name out there, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G is an unrestricted free agent. The 49ers cannot place a franchise tag on him. That is not an option. Do the Niners want Jimmy G back? Does Jimmy G want to be back? Is there any deal to be made there?
I'm thinking it's going to come in right about 6 years, $50 million a year is where I think Jimmy is going to sit at. No, I think this relationship is done. I really think it's done. I think it's Kyle Shanahan's usually pretty blunt. He pretty much said there's no chance that he comes back. And I don't think Jimmy wants to come back. I mean, I really think that he wants a fresh start. There's lots of good teams where he can be the starter. I mean, you're looking at teams like Indy, where he could start, maybe get a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Can have that. They're probably picking in the top 4, but they're also good enough to compete right now. So do they do the old Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo thing, but with a different quarterback? Does he get, does his agent negotiate a better deal than what New Orleans could get for Derek Carr? I think that he is definitely gone, and thank you. I mean, I really appreciate everything that he did.
Thank you.
Did for the team, and I'm glad I don't have to ever talk about him again.
Save from when it comes up in conversation, we're going to have to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo just because. But I like CJ's answer. Should the 49ers re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo? Will Jimmy Garoppolo be back? CJ says, hell nah to the nah. That is the appropriate response there. It's not happening, right? I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Hypothetical, though.
Hypothetical.
Not for him coming back to the team. But could you imagine all the Jimmy stands when he's like 7-0 on the Saints? Right?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yes, I can absolutely
like the
imagine
straight
that.
anarchy.
There's going to be a lot of people who are like, I told you. I told you.
What if it's even the Colts? Like the Colts won 4 games last year. He's like, oh, they're 7-0 with Jimmy Garoppolo.
There are some legitimate landing spots for Jimmy where he could go there and win like that. Ian Sharp coming in to say goodbye to Jimmy Garoppolo. Great one, saying, hey, Jimmy, back to the Patriots. I'm not so sure about that one, but there are certainly ties there. You look at New Orleans, you look at Houston, certainly with DeMeco Ryans ending up there. You look at the Washington Commanders. They feel like they're a quarterback away from competing in that division. Certainly, you could look at other links from ex-49ers coaches. You look at the New York Jets. You could see him ending up there with Robert Saleh. And the Las Vegas Raiders to have the tie back to Josh McDaniel. There are so many potential links out there. And at least half of those teams that we just mentioned are a solid quarterback away or a solid season away from performing at a high level. I could absolutely see a torrid start to the season for Jimmy Garoppolo. And yes, I agree. We will hear it from some 49er fans if that is the case. Looking at Ian Sharp coming in, Jimmy Vegas. Which of those, if you are going to call this, if you're going to say where Jimmy lands, what's your gut say?
With his, his stripper background, Vegas seems like a very good landing spot. It really does. I saw an interesting thing today. Somebody's from, I don't know where it was from, but they said Carolina. And the reason being is that they were saying that Young, the of course he's young, he's a prospect. But the guy from Florida, I think it's Anthony Richardson, is very raw, similar to the Trey Lance thing. Very raw, only threw for like 2,500 yards last year. Very athletic, gifted kid, but never really like just blew you away with quarterback stats, right? So they're saying, oh, sign him for 2 years to Carolina. Let Anthony Richardson like become a quarterback and throw, and then have that transition. But does Jimmy really want to be a transition person, or will he take less money to go to the Raiders where he is the guy, like a 4 or 5 year deal, and they build the team around him like that? I wonder what he wants out of that point. But I thought that was interesting because Carolina is the 11th overall pick, so that you're not getting a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud where you're most likely going to him year one. You're getting a guy who is a project, and will Jimmy want to play to be a project at that point? I don't know.
Yeah, I have to imagine that he would prefer a situation where he's coming in as the unquestioned starter. I mean, he's a guy that continues to battle with injuries, and if you've got someone that's waiting in the wings there, you're one injury away from potentially allowing that person to come in and snag your job, much like he's had here in San Francisco where he's out, other players come in. So I'm going to go with Vegas as the likely landing spot. All right, we have another Jimmy to talk about here, but first I do want to get to a comment here. One Bad Niner says, Rob Schuh, whatever happened to Eddie DeBartolo? Eddie DeBartolo is still out there and kicking. He got removed from the league for that riverboat scheme wherein he bribed some politician to try and get a riverboat gambling license, but he is alive and well. I mean, he had been removed from the team. I had the pleasure of shaking his hand in 2000 when Joe Montana and Ronnie Lott were inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Eddie D hosted that party for the two of them, as you would expect from a guy like Eddie D. My impression of Eddie is that I had no idea how short he is in stature, because he's a guy that carries a lot of bravado, but when you shake his hand, man, he is a diminutive individual. So just a little bit of an observation there. But let's switch from Jimmy to Jimmy. We've got a prediction in the chat that both Jimmys are gone. I saw a Jimmy and Jimmy. Yeah, great one, 765 coming in. Both Jimmy and Jimmy are gone. So we've talked about Jimmy with a Y, Jimmy Garoppolo, out the door. Let's talk about Jimmy Ward, who had his, Instagram post that seemed to indicate that he doesn't believe he's coming back. Do you see interest from the team, or a situation where Jimmy doesn't sign in the early stages of free agency and maybe comes back on a lesser deal?
If it wasn't for DeMeco Ryans getting hired, I don't know if there would be a market for Jimmy Ward. And the reason I say this is that every year these top safeties are out there and they never get the money that people think, right? I mean, you had guys who are all pros waiting until almost training camp to sign. Right? Because we found a guy off the street that was thinking about retiring, and he played safety for us in Tayshaun Gibson all year. Right? So at a very, very high level. And I'm not saying that safety isn't important, because obviously Niners leading the league in interceptions, happened because of our back end. Right? So I think that you look at like Jimmy Ward over 30 years of age, getting like 8, 9, 10 million, probably not. Like, he's probably not that guy. I mean, no offense to him, but Tayshaun Gibson had more interceptions this season than he's ever had. Right. So the safety position, the guys that really impact the game are usually the big number guys, the big takeaway guys. And he's not that. He brings everything else to the table.
Yep.
The only reason I think he's going to get some money is that you look at, he could sign a 3-year deal with Texas because they're rebuilding, because they need to establish a culture. They need to establish a winning type area. And I think he's that guy to help to help Texas get to that stage. I don't know what you think about his price point versus necessity, but generally safeties don't get that much money in the offseason.
No, especially if you're not a playmaker, if you're not someone who turns the ball over with frequency. I think you're right about that. The only way in which I see Jimmy Ward coming back, I think 420 Savage is onto something here. He says Jimmy might be back if Tayshaun Gibson is not. So in a scenario wherein Jimmy makes it through the first wave of free agency and is not offered a deal of his liking because of that fact that he is north of the age of 30, that he has very few interceptions on his career. If he doesn't get that premium offer, then Tayshaun Gibson decides, nope, I'm hanging it up. And the Niners need to go back out there in that type of a scenario where they haven't gone out and drafted somebody and Jimmy's still around into the summer. I could see a scenario where both come back together. I feel like that scenario that I just laid out is highly unlikely. And I think that the Niners will probably go in a different direction. A big part of that is what Ian Sharp sort of intimates here, which is I can't see Ward returning. Not that the Niners wouldn't want him, but that Ward might not want to come back to the 49ers, because that was the message I got from his Instagram post. All right, let's move on from safety to another defender.
I just looked it up here.
Oh, go ahead.
Out of the top paid safeties last year, there are 7 highly paid people that made over $5 million in free agency. Most of them are in that 28 to 32 range, which Jimmy Ward will be if he signs at the start of next season. You have Jesse Bates III. You have Jordan Poyer. You have Adrian Amos, Devin McCourty, Von Bell, Eric Rowe. You have a lot of these guys that are high-level free agents amongst, it looks like 50 other safeties. So, I mean, there's going to be guys that are going to be like, okay, well, hey, these are the 2 big guys. We found our stars. And then the money goes down. I mean, we all thought that the Niners would sign back his teammate of last year early on, and it never happened. So I just think the safety market isn't as potent as people think. And you're going to look at some guys that get paid the big bucks, and then everybody else is going to be waiting until May and June to sign. Where Jimmy Ward has it up, like I said, is Texas, because the fact that he knows the system that he wants to run. You can be very confident in the fact that he can lead these young corners, right? Derek Stingley Jr. for the Texans, and really like galvanize that room, because most likely Al-Shaair is probably going to go there as well.
Yes,
which he'll be on our list later. So like, I really think that would be his in, because it helps D'Amico Ryans get his defense ready sooner, because of a guy who knows the system, who he can trust in the back end, who is willing, and they have the money to pay whoever they want. So I think that he has the highest chance of getting the most money there, which if that's what he wants, to get paid the bag and not win, then yeah, go ahead and be a part of that defense.
Yeah, I would not be shocked at all if he ends up on the Houston Texans. Next one up on the list is Samson Ebukam, edge rusher, who I'll be honest, throughout the year, I was pleased with the way in which he played within this defense, but not thrilled. I mean, it's not the difference maker that I believe the 49ers do need opposite of Nick Bosa to truly unlock this defense. I'm going to guess that he garners a fair wage, more than I would want to pay for someone that doesn't unlock that aspect of being a true pass rusher. For me, if I'm the Niners, I'm looking to move on. I'm looking to bring in other players at the edge and allowing Samson Ebukam to go back out there and test free agency. And if we get into that second round where you have more affordable contracts as a really great run stopper, I would certainly explore the idea of bringing Ebukam back.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to get the money that, I mean, you look at the next highest on our team in sacks was Amenihue. Like, you paid Ebukam to be what Amenihue was, right? So the only way that Ebukam's on our team is if Amenihue gets more money than what we can pay him. But will his obviously it's been dismissed and everything, but you never know with lawsuits. Will that domestic violence thing come back up to bite him in free agency? We don't really know. We'll leave it at that. But I think there's a lot of free agents there. And ultimately, I'm very disappointed in the pass rush for the Niners. It really was Nick Bosa.
Extremely so.
And nobody else, right? So with Ebukam, is he worth $6 million? Probably not. So is he willing to take less of a contract to come back to the Niners and a team that he knows, that he trusts, he doesn't have to learn another scheme? Maybe. But teams are always looking for good edge rushers, right? Like, oh, you played for the Niners. You really know what you're doing. You can make a difference here when you're not on a rotating carousel of other guys. Right. You look at Arden Key, right? Got the bag. And
yes, he did.
It just really depends. I think the Arden Key character will be a Amenihue, which we'll talk about sooner. But if you go, or sooner than later, but Ebicom doesn't seem like a guy that the Niners should prioritize or that he'll get money. Like, it really doesn't seem like he just floats in the ethos.
So you see him as I do, that the Niners won't prioritize bringing him back, that other teams may not. So he may actually be available in that second wave of free agent signings. Do you see it as such?
Yeah, or third wave, to where you're like right before camp. Like, you look at guys like, Toure last year. I mean, he has similar stats to Ebicom, and he was like right before camp they signed him. So like, yeah. I think you could see that as well.
Well, let us hope, because I'm all about adding value. No question about that. All right, next one up is a fun one. Emmanuel Moseley, E-Man. In talking to Jackhammer about this one, he thinks that there's the potential that E-Man does still get that bag that he certainly would have gotten had he not been injured this season. He talked about how, hey, it's not truly a Jason Verrett situation where Jason Verrett had just a litany of season-ending injuries, and it appeared that they added up to create an unsustainable path forward for him as far as staying healthy, staying on the field. That's not the case with Emmanuel Moseley, but he does have a significant injury history himself. I've always seen it as that injury cost him a great deal of money, that teams will be hesitant to offer him a 4-year deal, and that he's probably best off coming back to the Niners on a shorter term deal that allows him to hit free agency when he is healthy. I would prioritize trying to bring back E-Man regardless of whether you have to pay a bit more for it or whether you're getting him on that 1-year deal, because having those two corners locked down and having Diamador Lenore as your third best corner on this team, now we're starting to make that shift into coverage equaling or being above the pass rush. Certainly if pass rush stayed where it was this year, other than Nick Bosa, we weren't accruing those sacks. So I like the idea of investing in that secondary. To me, Emmanuel Moseley is on the list of priority free agents.
I look at it this way, and the LA Kings just re-signed one of their own today. Beautiful contract for Mikey Anderson. Congratulations.
Nice.
But he was a young kid. They gave him an 8-year deal, but at $4 million a year. He's a number one left shot D, right? So those guys normally control $6 to $10 million, depending on how good you are. So they're saying, hey, we think you're going to be this guy. We're going to pay you long term, but we're going to pay you less money per year. So you're guaranteed that livelihood. I look at Emmanuel Moseley at 26 years old. If he has a prove-it deal this year, that he's really only getting 3 or 4 years on his next contract anyways.
Right.
So would Emmanuel Moseley say, hey, if the Niners offered him a 4-year at $7 million a year, hey, this is an in-between deal. You probably could have got $15 million. It's not the $4 million you were making earlier or whatever. It's $7 million right in the middle, but it's 4 years long. So you're under contract until you're 30. Is that enough security for you to sign back? I would be happy with that kind of deal, because then the upside of that, you're not getting value for Bosa. Bosa's going to get what he's going to get.
Oh, Bosa's commanding top dollar.
Deebo Samuel got what he's supposed to get. But if you can get value, and Emmanuel Moseley comes back and is the top corner that he was, you're getting a $15-16 million corner for $7 million.
Oh, it's huge. I can't imagine Moseley taking that deal.
But a lot of people, though, like, hey, if he starts testing free agency and his market is only $5-6 million, but the Niners give him 7.5 for 2 or 3 or 4 years, like, you're looking at, as long as the guarantees are higher, I could see it. Like, because it's stabilization for you as a man, because he's 26, right? Like, what if he doesn't come back?
I am all for that from the Niners' perspective. I just worry that we wouldn't be able to get it done. I like Jan's prediction here that this could be another player that D'Amico has his eyes on to bring in, because he knows that he's getting a value, a guy coming off of an injury that, when healthy, is freaking phenomenal. Are you trying to get him back if it's not on a 4-year deal? If you can get him back on a 1-year prove-it deal, are you taking E-Man back?
Yeah. But I'm not paying him $15 million, which is what he would have made if he was healthy.
Woof. Man, that is wild. That's a big ticket item. All right, let's talk about another big ticket item. Let's talk about this one. We'll bring up a little in the chat, I'm sure. Mike McGlinchey, in case you haven't heard, is a free agent. Are you attempting to get Big Mike signed? It's reported that he will get somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million plus. I mean, I won't be surprised given the numbers that we saw last year for Lake and Tomlinson, for DJ Jones. Like, we saw some good numbers being thrown out. Contracts are continuing to go up. I won't be shocked if he ends up getting a big deal from somebody out there, should the Niners be in the running there.
He's not predicted to be a top 10 tackle free agent, top 10 total player free agent in the entire league, offense, defense, whatever. He's getting the bag.
Cha-ching.
The Niners are going to get priced out. And everybody on here is like, oh, McGlinchey this, McGlinchey that.
Or McFlinchy, if you will.
He's a top 10 easily run blocker in the league.
Yes.
Every single year, according to PFF. Every single year. And everybody wants to look at the 5, 6, 7 highlights he's had in his career where he's gotten completely obliterated in the pass rush.
Yeah, and those are ugly.
Great. Yeah, but when he's doing his job and you're not focusing on him, how many of those of those plays, right? And if he's supposed to be the number one, then where are the other tackles looking like? If you don't like Mike McGlinchey and what he brings to the table, then what are the other tackles going to look like, right? Because the right side of this defense or offensive line ain't going to look pretty, right? I mean, you could say, hey, move Burford out and all these other shenanigans, but I think he's going to – no, Tom Compton did not outplay him. Not even close. So
that might be a bold statement.
Yeah. It's not a bold statement because the stats said otherwise. So, I just, like a lot of people don't like him. I don't know why he's such a polarizing person. I think it's just the fact that they put a high draft pick on him and he wasn't an all-pro, right? So
yeah, I think there are two factors that go into it. One is what you just said right there. And the other one is there's a loud voice out there that certainly paints a certain picture about Mike McGlinchey. And I think that has stuck.
I mean, you look at for this year, he played the entire season after coming back from an injury that people thought maybe he would take him out for this year as well.
Yeah,
with the quad, and he played great for the most of the season, right? I mean, yeah, there was a couple plays where he got tossed around, but outside of Trent Williams, most offensive line get tossed around once or twice, right? So,
right.
I just think you're looking at this. People think that, okay, in comparison to Trent Williams, well, you're never going to have the best offensive lineman probably in the history of the game in the last 5 years on both sides of your offensive line.
Right. It's not happening.
It's not going to happen. Do you think that Justin Fields, who was like a predator or bringing the prey for every team, and he had to run around all season long, wouldn't want Mike McGlinchey? Like, seriously, there's a lot of teams out there that are going to want him, and he's going to get the bag. If he doesn't get over $15 million a year, I'd be surprised.
I'm with you. I'm with Alan right here. Sums it up quite nicely. I think we should re-sign Mike McGlinchey, but I think Randon's right. He's going to be gone because someone is going to pay him. That feels right to me. All right. This one's quick. Azeez Al-Shire. I would love to bring back Azeez. I would love to have those 3 linebackers on the field again. I don't think it's going to happen. He is probably going to get paid, and he's probably going to get paid by the Texans. That feels like a name along with Jimmy Ward, potentially along with Emmanuel Mosley. I'm keeping an eye on all 3 of those defensive players potentially ending up with their old defensive coordinator now as head coach of the Texans.
It's been a little rough the last 2 seasons, with Miami poaching a lot of guys, now Texas poaching a lot of guys. Could you imagine the Eagles where both their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator got poached in the same season? I'm not an Eagles fan, and nor do I feel sorry for them, but it's I can only imagine. So, Al-Shire deserves over 115 tackles 2 years ago. He's easily a number 1 or number 2 guy on the team. A team that's rebuilding like the Texans could use a guy like him. I think it's a no-brainer. And the fact that they signed McCrary Ball and Greenlaw leads me to believe that he's gone.
I think the McCrary Ball signing absolutely locks that one in. It is probably gone. Tom Jensen coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel. Always love Tom's input here because it is always well thought out. He says, Rob, in my opinion, they keep Emmanuel Mosley. They keep Tayshaun Gibson. They put Zakelj out there at center. He was a draft pick last year. Colton McKivitz, who is a restricted free agent. We're going to talk about him in a minute, filling in at right tackle. So the math there says McGlinchey is out. And then he says, sign Ioannidis at defensive tackle. Go cheap for the rest. I want Nkui or Key, but doubt it. That pronunciation was probably butchered. right there. But yes, I'm with Great One here. He says Azeez will be the middle linebacker on the Texans. I agree. This next one is a bit of a luxury pick for most teams, but when you're at the top of the league, these positions matter. Robbie Gould is a free agent this year. Are you spending big money to bring back the ageless wonder kicker Robbie Gould?
What does he want? Like, what does he want? Like $5 million a year? Is he really going to ask for $5 million a year? If he does,
absolutely,
that's going to be rough.
He's asking for the same figure he did the last time, if not a little bit more.
I mean, it's going to be rough for the Niners. But isn't it kind of nice to know when we get in field goal range, you can get up and go pee, like knowing that we're going to come back with 3 points, where most teams don't have that luxury. I know the guy from Michigan has some calves on him, and he can kick the ball pretty far. But I mean, Robbie Gould hasn't won a Super Bowl in my knowledge, right? I mean, Bears
he has not.
So he's made plenty of money.
He has.
So where's his priorities, right? Is it signing with a team where he can win?
He seems to have two. If I interpret everything I've heard from Robbie Gould, he has two priorities. One is winning a Super Bowl. So I do think that we have leverage there. But the other one is his kids. I mean, who knows why people care about their kids, but they do. And apparently they still live in Chicago. And so he's always talking about wanting to be back there. So I wonder if he's going to hold out and use that, well, I'm away from my family for most of the year, as the incentive to get that dollar figure he wants. But to your point, there's some leverage there. If I'm the Niners, I'm trying to bring back Robbie Gould. It's too much of an unknown to bring in a rookie or someone off the street that is inconsistent. When you're a title contender, you try and bring in a guy like that. It's a nice to have, not a need to have, but I feel like the Niners can get it done. Robbie Gould has intimated that he wants to be back, right? It seemed like he had unfinished business. I'm saying you bring him back. I wouldn't be opposed to drafting a kicker later, but then you can't keep him on the roster. I can't go with a rookie on a Super Bowl caliber team.
I mean, Cincinnati did it, right? So, I mean, they were able to get it done. Robbie Gould, I think the thing about him being closer to home, I think is overblown now, because he spent 5-6 years in San Francisco. This is kind of his home. He's got enough money to fly his kids back and forth and all this kind of stuff like that. But I think that ultimately you got to get cheaper at certain places, and maybe this is where you cut. But he's so automatic to where when you need a big kick in prime time, you go to Robbie Gould.
Yes, you do. All right, so we're trying to bring him back, but it's money that you may have to save. Daniel Brunskill. All right, I'm putting two together here because I feel like it's important to distinguish between these two, both being free agents, both Daniel Brunskill and Jake Brendel. So you could talk about them separately, but I feel like they're tied together in what the Niners decide to do. Which of the two, if either, do you think the Niners try to prioritize bringing back?
Hey, Rob, I got a little there's somebody banging at my door here. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to exit here for a second. I'll be right back.
Go check it out. I will speak to those two. We'll see you back in just a moment, my friend. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about those two. I think they are inextricably tied. Daniel Brunskill and Jake Brendel. Between the two, I'm trying to bring back Jake Brendel, who outperformed as our center, filling in for Alex Mack. Feels like the more important of the two. If you bring back Jake Brendel, now you have the gentleman Zakelj becomes the backup there at center. I feel like you're insulated. If you get Jake Brendel signed and he doesn't have a huge market out there, which is a bit unpredictable at this point, then you can forego Daniel Brunskill. If you miss out on Jake Brendel, so I'm putting Jake Brendel as the top priority in free agency. If you miss out on Brendel, though, now you have to bring Brunskill back. Whether you've now got competition at center between Brunskill and Zakelj, to me, those two are absolutely tied. Jake Brendel should be the primary target, and Daniel Brunskill comes back as the second. All right, I want to bring in some comments from the chat. Appreciate the contributions. David Sir coming in with an opinion on that, says Brunskill is his priority there, more versatile than the two. That's absolutely true. Brunskill is capable of playing every position along the offensive line. I do think the Niners have fairly good depth if they have that center position filled. If they do not, Brunskill becomes a top priority for me. Waveware coming in to say, Rob, long time, bro. Good to see you. Absolutely good to have people back in the chat. Hey, we are back into the off season. Randon is currently dealing with the police that came knocking at his door. I'm kidding. Was it the cops? That's what the people want to know. That's what I want to know. Were the police banging down your door?
No, it was a homeboy saying, "Hey, I'm working tomorrow for your birthday. You want to come out for some beers?"
Hey,
oh, so good homeboy. I said, "Hey, I'll hit you up when I'm done."
Nice. It's always good to have those birthday wishes. Okay, so I talked about Daniel Brunskill and Jake Brendel together. Do you have an opinion on those two as to whether the Niners should attempt to bring one or the other back, or whether they are related in your mind?
I think Brunskill adds so much different depth, right, to all these kind of positions. Brendel probably can be re-signed for super cheap, and he only allowed I think 5 pressures all year, something ridiculous that you wouldn't even think.
He was phenomenal,
right?
I'm worried he may get more interest than we think in free agency.
My thing is David Sir coming up here saying, "How do you think Poe will be used?" Right? Practice squad player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He can play guard, or he's been practiced at center. You have Zakel. You also have the guy that was on the practice squad all year. He was the center from Arizona State.
I know who you're talking about, but the name is escaping me at the moment.
So they have a lot. They drafted a lot of, I would say, not for lack of a better word, mediocre depth, right?
Yeah.
Or late round depth would be a better word to say it, to see for this occasion, right? So if you can find a guy for the next 3 seasons, I think
Donovan West.
Yeah. I really think that one of those 3 guys are going to make the roster this year, and where that position happens, Brendel seems like it's an easy re-sign, right? Hey, Brendel,
yeah,
you're an aging veteran. You had your best year yet. Yeah, I understand you might want to go out and get the bag house $1.5 million instead of $800,000. Okay, great. And then you move on. So I wonder if that's going to be the case. I think where I think Poe might have the inside track is if they go Burford, kick him out to right tackle, and then he plays right guard.
Interesting. Because I was thinking there's no way Poe cracks that starting lineup, right? He could be a key depth piece, but if that ends up playing out, yeah, you could absolutely see that.
Yeah. So I think we'll see where they want to go, because obviously center, guard on a depth position or a late round pick is going to be way less than a tackle, right? A starting tackle, what we said McGlinchey's is going to make. So with that, money needs to go also, right? The Niners only have $15 million in cap space. Not enough.
No. And they only have something like 34 players signed at this point in time. It's another situation where not enough money, not enough players at the moment. You'll see a lot of these restructures and whatnot. I like how Joey sums it up here. He says, Brendel is a little bit better than I thought he'd be. I would say he's a lot better than I thought he'd be. But I don't think he's the long-term answer. I agree with that statement. I don't believe he's the long-term answer either. Joey goes on to say, I think he's always going to struggle against power. Wouldn't hate it if they re-sign him, though. I would bring him in and look for the long-term replacement at the same time. Those are what I would look at. Joey pointing out that West was actually cut at some point. I can't confirm or deny that, but I'm going to guess he is still available. Ian predicting Brendel won't cost much. I hope not. If he doesn't, he should be back. All right, flipping to the other side of the ball. A couple of defensive linemen here. First one going up, Hassan Ridgeway. I'm putting Hassan Ridgeway, as far as defensive linemen go, he is my top priority for the 49ers to re-sign, because I believe it's going to be a fairly inexpensive contract to get done. And Hassan Ridgeway looked very good, and Javon Kinlaw did not at the end of the season. So those 300-pound bodies for the 49ers are critical coming into it. So I'm saying re-sign Hassan Ridgeway. Where do you fall on this one?
See, this is where I think the draft could get interesting, because the fact that you know me, never draft for need, always draft for value.
Best available.
But we have 3 picks at the end of the third, for all those comp picks.
Yep.
I think you could force a D tackle, and this is why. Now, maybe not force a D tackle, but I think you could have a prominent D tackle that's an instant starter right away fall to you in the third round, because it's not as highly valued of a position.
It's not.
You see interior offensive linemen, D tackles fall all the time. And I really think they just need a fat guy to plug up the middle of the field. Obviously, nobody's fat in the NFL anymore. They're all muscular and whatnot, but you know what I mean? Just a big guy.
He's festively plump.
Yes, in the center. Very potent on the calorie intake, and and he can plug up the middle. I think that you could find a really good DT in those comp picks, because right, it's like 99, 101, and like 104. Like they're all like right back together. Like you really
they're
need
all sandwiched there at the end of the third round.
And I know a lot of people were talking about with the defensive coordinator hires and all this kind of stuff like that, going 3-4 versus 4-3. But the one thing about the 3-4 that's interesting is that they just have a behemoth in the center of the field as a nose tackle. And I think that the Niners do so many different amalgamations of their defensive line with depending on the formation that sometimes you just need a big dude in the middle to cause havoc.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have it on this team because Kinlaw ain't it. So
he is not to this point.
So I just think that it's something that that needs to be explored.
Yeah, I feel that this is, to your point of where you spend those draft picks, I'm with you. Best available player. But if I'm looking at some positions that I think the 49ers need to address, I'm with CJ Gray. This was an earlier comment from CJ saying we need to invest in the trenches. I see those picks at the end of the third round as a perfect time to bring in a defensive tackle, a project defensive end, an offensive lineman. Like some of those picks I absolutely see as essential. Let's talk about another defensive lineman, Kerry Hyder. To me, this one, if he's available towards the end and you're filling one of the last spots on your roster, Kerry Hyder's a phenomenal addition at the tail end of a roster. But I just don't think anyone is going to be prioritizing signing him. And so for me, I'm not prioritizing it if I'm the 49ers either.
Agreed. I just think he'll be maybe a late minute ad. Like in the Niners, every team's going to need those spots. And when you're a last minute ad, most people want to go towards a team they're familiar with, right?
Right.
They don't have to move. They don't have to like renegotiate the locker room. They know what's going on. And if they're getting within, 100K or 200K of a total roster amount, familiarity is at a point, great for your mental health. And I think a lot of these fringe players might go that route.
Yes. Absolutely. They like the familiarity. They like being on a team that might win it all. They like being able to showcase their talents because they're on a talented roster. There are a lot of reasons why the Niners might be able to bring in some free agents that otherwise should go to other teams for more money. Here's one that I'm not looking to re-sign, and I think this does fall into the category of a position the 49ers need to look at upgrading, and that is amongst their backup tight ends. Let's lump both of them in here because we got two free agent tight ends coming up, Tyler Kroft and Ross Dwelly. I would look at either one of those players in the same way I just described Kerry Hyder. If you get to the end of the summer and you need to fill one of your spots, I'm fine with a budget signing of either one of those gentlemen. I think Tyler Kroft was one of those types of signings last year, and obviously Ross Dwelly is a homegrown product for the 49ers. But I believe that second tight end spot needs to be addressed with a little more than just, we'll bring back a couple of these guys. That's one of those positions I feel like the Niners could upgrade at. So I'm passing on both Tyler Kroft and Ross Dwelly.
I think you're right there. I think you might be able to snag a guy here and there. Like we saw Tyler Kroft there, very, very, very close to the camp, and to where you could easily get some of those guys, last second. So I think it's something interesting to watch. And you have several tight ends that are in the draft that are right around that third round range. And I think that is a point to maybe where we take some, right? I mean, you need to get younger. You need to get cheaper. George Kittle's getting older. His contract getting more expensive. If you can get a solid number two tight end in the third or fourth round where he can block right away and develop into a pass catcher, secondary pass catcher, I think that might be something where they look to get cheaper as in a position would be tight end.
That would be huge. Getting into the next one on defense, Maurice Hurst. I'm going to go ahead and say again, this is fringe roster player, right? Not getting significant snaps throughout the year. I'm not even sure that Hurst made the field at any point, but if he did, it was in limited snaps. I'm not looking to bring Maurice Hurst back on this one.
No, I think he's gone regardless of how healthy he is. Like he hasn't been able to
get younger.
I think he's played like 5 or 6 games, like in the last 2 seasons. Like, and you can find D tackles. Like I said, I think they need to draft 1 or 2 and just get younger in the center of the defensive line. And hopefully the other guy that was, I forgot his name last podcast too. The fifth round, the 5th round pick, super short, stout dude. He was injured all season long.
Oh, you're talking Kalia Davis.
Yes. Like I think they need another guy and maybe Kalia Davis to punch up the middle, but I really think they just need an enormous human being.
They do need an enormous. Someone pointed out they need somebody to be fluffy. They need a fluffy human being in the middle there. All right, so next one up, Tayshaun Gibson. I know Tayshaun himself is sort of considering whether he wants to come back. To me, if he does, he was such a great fit. That was such a natural pairing. I'm absolutely looking to bring Gibson back if he is interested.
He's my number 1 free agent signing.
Ooh, number 1 priority. You heard it here. Josh Johnson, would he qualify as your second most important re-signing?
Yeah.
I mean, he clearly dominated in the Philly game. That was next level stuff.
On the radar, definitely on the radar there. I think Gibson, because this is a place where you can go cheap and valuable.
Yes.
I think Gibson at the end of his life also wants to win, right? Like if he's contemplating retirement, you want a ring, right? And so I think the fact that you can probably get him for relatively cheap, like we talked about with Jimmy Ward, there's a lot of safeties on the market. So will he go to a place where he can shine? He knows his partner. Like, is the difference between a couple, at max, maybe $1 million worth it for him at that point? Or does he want to live his dream out to try to get a ring? I would assume the latter. I don't know his finances. I'm not his accountant, but I would assume the latter, right? So I really just think that he's the number 1 priority because, hey, if you can lock him down for cheap and you can have continuity in the back end, that secondary stays stellar. And then you can worry about all the other stuff because I think he's affordable. I think he's available. And I think that he's very much a priority, this defense. Will he be as effective as he was last season? Most likely not, because that guy played his ass off. But I really think that he can do a good enough job. We draft the safety in, whatever rounds 3 through 5. And then in his second year in the league, after learning under the new defensive coordinator, he can step in to where Gibson is at. Obviously, he might retire, right? He might say, hey, this is done. I put all it in. But I really think that he even said himself that playing for the Niners revitalized his love for football. Yeah. So, I really think that he can do that and get him back. And then, I just don't think he gets that much of a pay raise to where he is affordable. He comes back to a team that he knows he can play on and will be good at. Yeah. Compete for a ring. I think that's where you can get serious value if you're the Niners.
Right. He probably gets a bump from what he earned this season because he was coming off of the street, and now you've had a successful season underneath his belt. But I agree. He's going to be affordable, quote unquote. Waveware coming in. Gibson did a hell of a job at an important position. Get that man back. Yes, I think we can officially say, as Ian Sharp does, the Josh Johnson era is over, unless you have a vote to bring him back. Randon, if you want Josh Johnson back in the building, you just let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to say that Josh Johnson is headed out.
I mean, he always goes out and comes back. He's a boomerang.
He is. He and Dante Johnson will at some point next season be back on the 49ers. Hopefully neither needs to play a snap, however.
Tayshaun Gibson made $1.1 million.
Yeah, my guess is he gets closer.
He makes 1.752. Like, you could see that to where it's still affordable.
I think he's more like 2.5 mil per year. Still very affordable and a substantial raise for the man. All right, next one up, Jordan Willis. This one does excite me. That is a name that I want back on the 49ers. He's a locker room guy. You hear Nick Bosa talking about him. He's an effort guy. Nothing flashy. I mean, the 49ers, you said it, outside of Nick Bosa, have not had that dominant force. But I like the Jordan Willis fit. I like the attitude. I like the motor on him. So I am bringing Jordan Willis back if at all possible.
I like it because he's a special teams player too. Like he plays a lot of things. He's probably not going to be a priority ad as far as like, the type of money that you're going to give a guy, but I think he does a little bit of everything. He plays inside, outside, special teams. I think there's importance to a guy like that.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. We've got another special teamers coming up. That is the long snapper, Tabor Pepper. You got to lock down Pepper. I mean, it's not going to cost you anything. He's a freaking long snapper. So even if he is one of the better long snapper in the leagues, he's not going to get compensated a whole hell of a lot. But you keep that unit together. Maybe if you decide we're not paying gold, we're getting cheaper at the position, then maybe you explore bringing in someone that you pair with the new kicker. But if you're bringing back Robbie Gould, you got to reunite everybody. You got to have Mitch, Tabor, and Robbie back in the special teams huddle.
3 best friends that everyone could have. Yeah, you got to bring Pepper back. One, his social media presence is phenomenal.
It's elite.
It made me spit out my beer when I saw him go to Madden and ask for his rating to be up from 48 to 49. Like it made me laugh so hard, and like just him all the time is just hilarious. Like for anything else you need to sign him. He's a good long snapper. He probably doesn't want to go anywhere either. Like I would assume, right? Like continuity and all that kind of crap that we've been talking about nonstop this
all
podcast.
That crap.
I don't know. I like the dude. I like his vibe. I think he should be on the team for sure.
I agree. Joey Nichols says offer him 10 years, $500 million. Bring him back. Harold coming in. 49ers picking the 3rd round of the draft, correct? Yes, they do. They will have 3 picks at the end of the 3rd round of the draft. All right, we have already covered a couple of these guys next on the list. So then we have cornerback Jason Verrett. You know I have to do it. It's probably the last time I can show off Jason Verrett's cleats here. This is probably the last memory of Jason Verrett that I'm going to have. I can't imagine a scenario where he gives it another go and where the Niners give it another go. My guess is that he actually hangs up those cleats that I just put in front of the camera there.
I don't think it's a Niners thing, but I could see him doing like a Josh Norman type thing this year. Right?
Being on the street and then someone gets an injury, bringing him in later.
Yeah. That gives him more time to recover, right? You're talking about week 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
There's a chance that it's a very good team that signs him, right? Like a team that had a brutal injury. And then he can play some meaningful football in November, December, right? So I just don't think the Niners prioritize him at all. I don't think maybe he feels grateful to the Niners and wants to stay with us because of the way we've stuck by him. But you look at Lenore played well. Samuel Womack, I thought, should have played all season. And I don't know what happened there. And I guess we'll probably never find out. Maybe it was a Drake Jackson type doghouse moment.
Right.
But I think the Niners have a lot of good young corner and defensive backs to where they probably don't need him for depth. And you could always, we have 10 picks after the 3rd round. You could definitely draft 1 or 2 more corners to compete. So I just don't see it there for Jason Verrett with the Niners, but I do see him kind of getting healthy and staying in shape enough for his agent maybe to find him a deal, weeks, 5 through 17.
I tell you what, man, I would not be shocked by that. As many injuries as he's been through, like the dude is just made of something different as far as his willingness to keep fighting through that, to come back, all the rehab that it takes, all the commitment that it takes to get back up to that level. I'm with several of the commenters here. Jason Walsh coming in to say, I feel bad for Jason Verrett. I do too. I mean, this dude has gone through way too much. Joey Nichols expressing the same sentiment. Feel terrible for Jason Verrett and everything he's gone back through. I'm with the idea of Jan says, I like Verrett. Wouldn't mind giving him a last chance. From a standpoint of the emotional of it, I love it. I would absolutely be thrilled from a roster construction standpoint. Even if, as Ian Sharp suggests here, you do it on a minimum contract, I do wonder if the Niners are at that place where they need healthy bodies on this roster. They can't afford to have a spot where it's someone that, if he stays healthy, he's going to contribute to this team. No, we need players that are young, healthy, if tapped, can come in and compete, and may not be at the same level of skill, obviously, as Jason Verrett, but a healthy body on the field is absolutely critical at points. And at this stage for Jason Verrett, as much as I want him to succeed, I'm just not sure that it's a great bet to be making if you're a Super Bowl caliber roster.
Yeah, I just don't think it's something where you're going to see it from the Niners. I think they have too much talent there, and from the young age to move forward with that.
I agree. I think you're more likely to see someone taken in the later stages of the draft and give them a chance instead of getting Jason Verrett back. Although I would not be opposed to it. If Jason Verrett is on this roster, I will be supporting him wholeheartedly because he is that dude in my mind. All right, next one up is another defensive back, Tavarius Moore, coming back for the 49ers. This one is a fringe for me. It's a great special teams player if you can get him. Not a huge priority, but if I can bring him back on a modest deal, I am.
Yeah, good special teamer, safety depth. I think it'll be a type of player that you wait till after the draft, right? Hey, if we get some good safeties in the draft, he's gone. If we don't and other positions arise and we take them, he's a guy that you can sign after the draft and be, hey, come be this backup guy, play some special teams. I think he'll be that kind of borderline second wave, third wave guy.
I am with you on that one. Last one here before we get to those restricted free agents is Charles Omenihu. This one, Charles did not accrue the number of sacks that I expected him to, but his pressure rate was phenomenal throughout the season. And that is often an indicator of someone who is primed to then get those. But it was the same at the tail end of last season as well. So coming into this year, I was saying Charles Omenihu is primed to have a breakout season. He did not. I see the talent there. As long as no further details come out about the arrest that he had, I think he will be a reasonably sought after free agent, that second tier of pass rusher. And the 49ers do need defensive ends opposite of Bosa. It's not the piece that I want to complement Bosa. I think the Niners need to take a bigger swing. But if you can bring back Charlie Omenihu on a reasonable deal, I am absolutely going to do that.
I think he's a high chance to go back to the Texans as well.
That is fair as well. He didn't seem to have great things to say about that organization, but now with D'Amico heading in there, maybe he's willing to change his tune and give them a new opportunity to prove him wrong, that under D'Amico, they could be a different organization.
There's going to be lots of teams that are up and coming or that are like on the fringe that have good cap space that could afford to pay him more money than what his sacks totals showed. Because his pressure rate was still great, and I just don't know if the Niners we still have that much space.
No,
right? I mean, you're gonna have to see 2 or 3 restructures, which is just kicking the can down to further years to compete right now.
Yep.
And like I've been saying, you can't sign everybody. Like a lot of these guys, and so it's like when people give Juice $8 million a year to play fullback, like that's a vast overpayment. Like as much as I love Juice, right? Like, you have those types of players where are you going to be able to re-sign these guys for long term? And obviously it's going to get in the way, right?
Absolutely.
I think the way Dre Greenlaw played his contract this year, or the way he earned his contract this year, he outplayed what he's going to be paid. But when you're already paying Fred Warner the amount of money you're paying him, can you really afford to pay another linebacker, right?
Right.
Like, it comes to that value situation. The Christian McCaffrey bumping his salary up to $12 million. It's $11 million more than what he was getting paid last year. I just think you have to make cuts somewhere, and it seems like it's going to happen, but you never know because John Lynch likes to have a bolsterous defensive line, and maybe that's where they spend their money.
He does. And there's a laundry list of guys that we've just gone through that fall into that category, right? Obviously, we're talking about Charles Omenihu here, but we went through Samson Ebukam. We talked about Hassan Ridgeway, Kerry Hyder, Maurice Hurst, Jordan Willis, all of those guys along that defensive line. If I'm choosing from that list, I'm letting Samson Ebukam walk unless it is a really favorable deal for the 49ers. I'm prioritizing Hassan Ridgeway. I'm letting Kerry Hyder walk. I'm letting Maurice Hurst walk. I'm prioritizing Jordan Willis. I'm trying to bring in Charles Omenihu, but the idea of getting 3 out of those 6, it feels slim at this point. I think between Charles Omenihu, Hassan Ridgeway, and Jordan Willis. My guess is we only get 2 out of those 3.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I mean, they're going to have to get cheaper somewhere, and that's the part of having a winning team, right? You have guys that have earned big contracts, and you're going to have to go from there. That's why it's so prudent to win during the rookie contract window. You have to do it.
You do. That's where the savings are. How about them Niners coming in? He says, Rob, have you seen Brevin Spanford, a big 6'7" tight end that's hard to tackle, can catch and block? I have not, but as the combine approaches, I'm going to be focused on that tight end position because I do believe that is one of the areas the Niners can get better. All right, we are getting into restricted free agents. There are 3 of them for the 49ers. Here's a reminder about what restricted free agents mean. You can tender them with a draft pick, meaning you can say, hey, we're tendering them with a first-round draft pick, a second-round draft pick, or an original round tender, wherein if a team comes in, they must then compensate you with that draft pick on top of paying that individual. Now, in this case, 2 of those 3 were undrafted free agents coming in. So Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is a restricted free agent. He was an undrafted free agent coming out of college. And Kevin Givens is an unrestricted free agent. And a restricted free agent, and he was an undrafted free agent coming out of college. Then you have Colton McKivitz, who was a 5th rounder. So out of the 3, the only one with the original round tender that was actually drafted would be Colton McKivitz. Off the top, I'm going to say that no one here is tendered. I think maybe they go right of first refusal with Kevin Givens, which means the team that comes in does not need to compensate you with a draft pick, but you have the option to match the contract they put on the table for the player. Maybe that's the case for Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles as well. Maybe it's the case for all 3, but I just don't think that they're going to tender any of them with the draft pick unless they're intentionally letting Mike McGlinchey walk. And then maybe you see an original round tender for Colton McKivitz, that 5th rounder, because if you let McGlinchey go, you got to have someone to start at right tackle. And McKivitz was his primary backup last season.
That's where you and I, continue to do this podcast year over year because we're on the same page, my friend. I think McKivitz is my guy there. I think the original round tender would be where I would go because McGlinchey's gone for me. Like it just is what it is. Yeah. So it's like I think that you're looking at I think you're looking at a way to tender that up and get some depth there because the last thing you want to know is or have happen is for some reason McKivitz gets signed, McGlinchey's gone. Like you're not getting a legit starter in the 3rd round or later at tackle.
Nope. Not unless you strike gold.
It hardly ever happens. And don't give me what Purdy happened this year and rookies happen and this and that. One rookie of our entire draft last year started all year long, and that was Burford. So it very rarely happens. And I don't want to put my entire season of a turnstile for both of our quarterbacks or either quarterback or whoever quarterback, and sign McGlinchey or McKivitz back just to give us some padding.
Yeah, to me, that one is highly dependent upon what you're doing with Mike McGlinchey, but I completely agree that if you're letting McGlinchey go, McKivitz becomes a priority. By the way, we have our Eagles fan back in the chat. I want to say, JT56, I appreciate you showing up here because, that's tough. You did have a rough loss there. He says in a loud voice, we all know it wasn't a hold. JT56, you are talking to the wrong crowd here, my friend. I think everyone in this chat is probably on the other side of it. I mean, when the defender comes out himself and says, yeah, I held him, that to me is pretty definitive. I will say I take no glory in you suffering, JT56. You were a model Eagles fan. You came in here, you were respectful. I have respect for you as a person, so I will not gloat about it. But I will say there were enough Eagles fans that treated me very poorly when I was in Philadelphia that I am sort of elated at the idea that there was a call that now eats at them a little bit. Not for you, JT56. I feel badly for you, but all the other Eagles fans, I don't feel badly for them at all.
I don't feel badly for you, JT, at all, period. Like us,
no sympathy from Randon.
Us Niners fans have gone through it with all these crappy losses, 1st and goal in the 4, and we don't get the ball to Frank Gore, yada, yada, yada. We've all been there, my man. We've all cried the good cry. He flat out grabbed his jersey. Whether it was a weak hold or it was a prominent hold, it was still a hold by the letter of the law. And it's a penalty. Every game has penalties where it is or it is not called, goes back and forth, whatever. I mean, Niners fans, we're guilty of this too. We cried for over 6 months that Bosa got hold. So we get it. But you lost, and I'm kind of happy about it. So
absolutely. There's joy. And I have to say that on Twitter, I really almost took a little picture, the meme of Michael Jordan crying. He had an Eagles hat on, and I was going to do what Harold did here. Michael Jordan crying with cry, Eagles cry. Not because I want to rub it in at all, but a little bit, at least a little bit. JT56 coming back in, and I respect it. See, but if he didn't say it was a hold, would he have been fine? Casey absolutely deserves the win. Sucks that's how the game ended. JT, you and I are a lockstep on that. I will say this, that it was a penalty, and it shouldn't have been called. End of a game like that, just let them play. Like, that is unfortunate. You took a game that could have ended without any question marks, that could have been a phenomenal comeback for Philly, for all we know, and took it away from us. So in that instance, yes, KC deserves that win, and I wish it had gone down a different way. So I'm in lockstep with you there. But no, I think he admitted it was a hold because it was a hold.
I've already said my piece.
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's close out on this one, because going through those free agents is a long freaking list here. We'll see if we can't get to the last couple in quick succession. But your top 5 free agents in-house, if you're listing your priorities here, Randon, I'm going to go ahead and give mine first. But who are your top 5 guys? I'm going to go 5, and then I'm going to cheat, because I'm a cheater. So I'm going to go ahead and put in honorable mention as well. So feel free to cheat if you need to, Randon. Number 1 for me is E-Man. Emmanuel Mosley, target number 1. Target number 2 is Mike McGlinchey, and I know that's going to piss off a lot of people in the chat. I'm capping that at $15 million, though. If it goes north of 15, you got to find somebody else for that right tackle spot. Tayshaun Gibson as a cheap but very valuable free agent. Charles Omenihu, because I do believe that breakout season is coming, and I don't want him to have it in Houston. And Hassan Ridgeway, because I do think we need a fluffy big man in the middle, and I love the way that Ridgeway was playing prior to that injury. Honorable mention for me, Robbie Gould, Jake Brendel, if not Jake Brendel, Daniel Brunskill. Those are my priorities coming in. Who do you see as the top priorities for the 49ers?
Man, we're going way different in this one, man. I'm going priorities based on value because of where our cap situation's at.
I like that. We need money.
So my number 1 already spilled the beans there, Tayshaun Gibson. I think it's great value that we can get him at. I still think he can give us 1 more year of elite play. We draft a couple safeties and hope one rises to the cream of the crop, as we say. I think Jake Brendel is a priority sign there, because I think that you can also get him for relatively cheap.
Good value.
Have some continuity on the offensive line, and go that route, because Donovan West, I thought, was really going to take a step up. Apparently he got cut. Didn't know that. And then you have Poe, who seems to be more of a guard, but we'll see what goes there. I think Colt McKivitz is a big sign, because I think McGlinchey's all for sure out there, but I wouldn't put him above Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley sits 3. He's the number 1 in talent for me, but I think he's just a trickier sign. I think you can get Gibson and Brendel done like before the draft, and just get them, stowed away, ready to go for cheap, because they'll want to come back. They're older, valued veterans. I think Mosley's going to take a little bit more massaging, but he would be 3. I would say McKivitz is 4, and I think Gold is 5 for me. I think it's going to be tough to rely. Well, counter argument to that. We'll get to that in a second. But I think it's going to be tough for Shanahan to rely on a rookie kicker, or even a kicker that's not as a veteran, when you have a quarterback coming back off injury and you have Trey Lance, right? Like, are you going to go for it on 4th and 3? Or are you going to let Robbie Gould kick a 49-yarder? You feel more safe with Robbie Gould. Now you're going to go for it on 4th or 3, or you're going to let a rookie kick a 49-yarder?
Right.
Yeah, right. You have that thing there. I think Gold, depending on where he's at. So I'm trying to go for value there. I think the only one where we might have to pay up for, which I think he'd be worth it, would be Emmanuel Mosley. But I think the Niners really need to cut their losses. with a lot of these guys that are going to get priced out and move on. That's part of the game. It happens all the time. And I'll say this to Michael McGlinchey. He deserves to get paid. He's going to get paid big money. He deserves it. The Niners can't keep him. It is what it is. And good for him wherever he decides to go. But I think you really look at Tayshaun Gibson is probably the most important and most valuable piece that we could re-sign instantly with how big the safety market's going to be or how many people are in the safety market. And I think the fact that he'll just want to come back, I really do.
Yes. It's a quality fit. I love that list from a value standpoint. I think you've nailed it. Aside from maybe the Robbie Gould one, which is more of a luxury signing, but I'm still on board with bringing Robbie Gould back. All right, we got a super chat that is non-football related, but when you pay for a question, you get an answer. So Gamon Brown coming in with the super chat. Question number 1, and it's sneaky. Got 3 in here. I love it. Question 1, what things do you wish you'd known before starting your career? Question 2, what's the most challenging thing about your job? Question 3, what advice do you have for people who want to do what you do? So I'm assuming that you're asking me about what I'm doing right now and not my other career, because I don't talk about my other career, so people don't know what my other career is. What do I wish I'd known before starting my career? This is true whether you're speaking about what I'm doing right now on the YouTube or any job. Is do what you love. Find something that brings you joy. Yes, money is important to a point. You need to make enough money to where you can survive. You need to make enough money to where the stresses of life don't eat away at you. You've got to be able to provide for your basic shelter, your basic necessities, all of that. That is important when it comes to money. Everything beyond that, I would argue that happiness is more important than money. And money does not buy you happiness. It simply exaggerates the way in which you can express your happiness. It gives you freedom to do things, but the true happiness is not from the money itself. It is absolutely from what you're doing. And for me, talking here with Randon, interacting with people here in the chat, I freaking love this. And so I find time on top of a full-time job to come in here and do this. Randon takes time on top of his full-time job to come in here and be a part of this stream. And I know for me, it's because I love it and it's rewarding and I get something out of it. The most challenging thing about my job, about this particular job, about doing the streaming, is definitely the prioritizing it, finding the time to do the things that you love. If you just allow life to dictate terms to you, it can be very difficult to find those times to bring in a program like this. And I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, Randon and I have canceled a couple of shows since I started back at a different position, and it changed things up. You have to have your priorities, but make sure that you make time for the priorities that bring you joy. And question 3, what advice do I have for people who want to do what I do? If you're talking again about this particular avenue, I would say practicing your ability to speak in front of groups is a great skill to have, almost no matter what you're doing in life. The ability to talk in a very cogent fashion, come across sounding reasonably intelligent. These are practice skills that can absolutely be learned. I have in my lifetime consciously removed ums, ers, all the filler words that you use. Now, I still find random filler words to put in there, and fans who have been with the channel for a long time can recognize yes, indeed, and phrases that I will use when I'm locked up in my head and thinking about something. But you can consciously become a better public speaker. Don't be afraid of pauses. Don't be afraid to just say nothing for half a beat. Allow your brain to catch up. Don't fill it with a dead word. Just let the silence sit. Trust me. You practice that and you get comfortable with it. You stop saying all of that. That would be my advice. Randon, anything you want to add in, layer in on top of that?
Yeah, Gammon, it just depends on what you want to do for this, right? If this is something that you want to do for your career to where you're really making money. I mean, I barely make enough doing this to buy beers on a week-to-week basis. Now, obviously, 2 beers. We hope we're a segment on ESPN sometime, right? But right now, it's not that way. So, Gammon, do you hope this is a part of your career for life? Is this something that you're really proud of? Because then at this point, I think one of people's greatest fears in life is being misunderstood. And it's hard, especially as an eccentric person I am, to feel understood from everybody in here. You're not going to be liked by everybody in the chat. You're not going to be liked by everybody in your field of work amongst Niners contributors or content creators, Niners fans. But being okay with being misunderstood, knowing that this is your passion and what you want to do, and then having tunnel vision. If you really want this to be your career, you have to block out everything else. You have to block out going out with friends. You have to block out excess things in your life. Watching anime and doing all this kind of stuff. Like, you have to be able to set that aside and really punch through in a real way, because you see the people in Niners realms or in podcasting in general who have done so. They have the benefit now to do that as a full-time job. And so if you're really interested in doing this in a real way, I would say being okay with being misunderstood is the number thing that I wish I would really understand, and having tunnel vision to what you want to do, and then believing who you are and what content you're putting out would be the three things that I would say.
That's huge. I agree wholeheartedly on not letting other people's opinions hold water with you, right? It's more about how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the content or the effort that you're putting out. Come on, comes back in to say, thank you for being real, open, honest, and vulnerable. Anytime, always willing to. Jan says, hey, it doesn't hurt if you just go out and buy yourself one of those golden radio voices. That's the way to do it. The trick is all in the microphone, Jan. That's the secret. All right, Kevin from Glasgow coming in here with the donation. Agree with you 100%, Rob. Always find the balance between work studies and fun. Never let life hold one back from the facade of life's boundaries within. It is a short period of time that we are on this freaking earth, and you got to do what you love, because when you look back, I swear, no one on their deathbed is like, man, I wish I had made an extra 500K. They look back at like, I wish I had spent more time with family. I wish I had done more of the things that I wanted to do in life that brought me joy. It is definitely those other elements of life that you cherish when you realize you don't have any time left. So just be conscious of the idea that time is fixed on this planet, and make sure you're finding time for those things that add value. Speaking of finding time, man, we are close to a 90-minute mark here, and we had a couple of other topics, but we are going to bump those to the next show. This has been a phenomenal freaking show here. Alan Elizer coming in to compliment us, says, Rob and Randon, great show, gentlemen. I appreciate that. And like J49, we are red and gold till I'm dead and old. Yes, agree. Great show here. Wonderful. Randon, thank you so much for being a part of. I want to get you out of here because you only have, 2.5 hours until your birthday? Good, sir?
Yeah, it's time to go out and have a few more beers and then forget however went out to get a few more beers.
I am glad we're back as well. Make sure that you are wishing Randon a early happy birthday. You can follow him on Twitter. You can go subscribe on YouTube, and you can send him a message at midnight tonight, Texas time, which is 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All of his information is down below in the description of the video. We will be back on next week, as always, to hear about those birthday adventures that Randon has out there. I'm sure there'll be some debauchery involved there, and we will be back next week on Wednesday. But until then, happy early birthday, Randon. Until then, you know the drill. Cheers, faithful.